Okay. So hello everyone. I'm Polimi and I'm so thankful to Tanu for organizing everything and Kalindi College Mitrakshar, right? That's the organization. So thank you for thinking about me that I could be of help to this academia and in the way I would engage and what I do. So thank you so much for thinking about me and giving me this opportunity. This really feels very nice and special to talk to young folks and what you think about reading and writing, because that's definitely one big part of academia, right? So I would like to start today's session with a little bit of Mentimeter activity. Okay, so this is your Mentimeter code. So if you go to mentimeter.com and you kind of type this activity, you can do it from your phones as well. You don't need to do it from your laptops. Then you would be there's a question. That's what I want to know. As I said, the agenda today is to make you feel differently about texts and difficult academic texts. So let's begin by realizing what we actually feel. Where do we stand? So I'll open the Mentimeter page so that I get to know what responses we have. So this is the question. What do you feel or believe about academic reading? And you could put in a single word, single words, phrases, or long sentences, but try to be as specific as possible. That would be very helpful. So we can take about 2 minutes time to write your responses, and then we'll start from there. Is it accessible to everyone? Hopefully. Anyone who's trying to submit and is having any difficulty, please let me know. Folks, are you trying? Or is it nobody's trying and just waiting for the other person? This comes anonymously just to help you. I don't get to see your names, so you can just put in your answers anonymously and we can just start the session with some brainstorming. What is academic reading for you? What does it make you feel? What do you believe it to be? Why do you believe so? Can you share the code again? It's there. The code is, just a second. Stop sharing. Yeah, this is the code 35350029. 35350029. The reason I'm opening this is I would get to see your answers very soon. People who are joining in late, we're just doing a small Mentimeter activity where I'm asking you to jot down what you feel or believe about academic reading. This comes anonymously, so please feel free to respond. Tanu, would you just try this and let me know if there's a glitch?
Yes, ma'am. What do you want me to check?
Yeah, I want you to use this code on the Mentimeter board and put in your comments. The question is this: what do you feel or believe about academic reading? Anything that makes you feel. So makes you feel confused, makes you feel kind of resistant to reading, whatever. I don't want to feed you with ideas, so that's what I don't want to do. That's why I set up this question, because I might give you ideas, but I don't want right now. So students, please don't make me wait any longer. Even one word is good. Even if you think you just want to type one word and put the submit, that's okay. Yeah, that's also okay. It's just that chat box. Yeah, there you go. So people are getting in. Hectic, at times difficult to grasp. Very good. Yeah, Tanu, chat box is absolutely okay. It's just that the chat box is not visible to everyone. This just looks great on a board, so that's why. Yeah. If you can't open it, then you can definitely put it in the chat box. I'll see it from there. You cannot read a single text. You have to read a lot of text related to about the text you're focusing on. Okay, good, very good. Rigorous. Thank you so much. Now slowly the brain's opening up and ideas are coming. Take a moment. Let's think about this. It's rigorous, it's hectic, and there's someone who says that the moment you want to focus on some one text or try to understand what it means, you have to kind of end up reading several other texts to make meaning of it. Okay, it helps us to understand different ages or periods. Okay, so you're trying to say what is academic reading all about, because it gives you a certain history of certain things. Okay, intimidating at times. Very, very true. Very true. Maybe you could think about how fast or how slow you read. That could be one way of kind of thinking about this question. How much time do you actually take when you start reading academic texts? Do you read it at a stretch? Do you take breaks? Do you break up the reading and then read it? Right? Is a lot of writing involved when you read texts? Or is it just sitting on a comfortable chair and kind of, or lying down in the bed and trying to read academic text? Can you really read texts like that, heavy text like that, like a nighttime reading? Do you do that? So all of that. Academic reading expects one to learn critical analysis, framing arguments. I so love this answer. See, there you go. So critical analysis and framing arguments. Critical and arguments, two very important words for argumentative writing and academic texts, have already come in right in the first brainstorming activity. Great. Tedious. If it's not interesting and we don't have prior knowledge, love this answer as well. Prior knowledge. That's what you wanted to arrive at. And great. So I'm already getting maybe two more answers, and then I'll start what I have in store for you. And I'm actually going to draw many ideas that are here. One is the very feeling of this resistance about the text. And the second is that you actually understand the text not in isolation, but in connection to other texts, right? I think academic writing is different from creative writing. You need to study, and that goes in capital letters. So you need to study different texts in order to write a piece. I find it quite difficult, as words usually cannot come from the heart. Okay. So is academic reading or academic writing something which you do mechanically, or is there a joy in writing? This is also very, very crucial. Can you really excel at something if you do it without joy? That's one question I would like to ask. Maybe we'll also roll this question over to our next session where we talk about writing. And we often feel that academic writing is something that does not give us the joy related to writing. Creative writing does. Writing your diary does. Then why not academic writing? Maybe I will try to burst that myth, but yes, slowly and steadily. I end up reading single para quite many times. That demotivates me from further reading it. Repetition in the hope of understanding something. So reading something repeatedly, and because you can't understand, it also leaves you desperate, feeling helpless about something, right? What do you do to actually tackle that experience of helplessness? Because you have to move beyond. You can't just stop there, right? Okay, great. So these are great ideas to start with. Thank you so much to all the students who have taken their time, and maybe even faculties who have responded to this. Thank you so much. I will go back to the presentation. And I was actually expecting some questions because you already have to be ready with what if no one answers. So this was my second idea. If no one answers, this is what I was planning to show, is that being able to read a section of writing means I'll be able to understand everything about it adequately. This actually goes back to that response in the Mentimeter board, which says that I read one paragraph over and over again, trying to understand what it is. And the moment you fail to understand maybe the first or the second paragraph, you quit because you didn't quite understand how it began. So you leave it because you don't have the urge or the energy to move forward that difficult piece, right? So maybe that's some of the myths that we'll try to break, is that academic reading is not about understanding every bit that you read, but it's trying to tease out, in Benjamin's word, the essence of the text. That is what you carry from the text to your own writing, right? So if you come across texts which are difficult and paragraphs which are not opening themselves up to you, try to decode it using all the methods of close reading that are available. You are students of literature, so you already possibly know lots of methods of close reading. But in spite of that, if by the sheer difficulty in the way that passage is written, it just makes a kind of a block for your understanding, the advice would be leave that, move ahead, try to grasp the essence of the text, not the entirety, right? There are people who also said that it is hectic because it takes time, right? So you often would say that academic reading is slow, and because I'm slow, it's bad. It's not bad. Deep reading takes time. It takes multiple readings to actually engage and understand the text. So if you are expecting that I would understand everything in my first or cursory reading, then most probably you're approaching the text in a wrong fashion, right? So that's the second myth that I was expecting. There are many more answers which came in. These are the ideas that I had in my mind, so I chopped them out. Feeling guilty about leaving a text unfinished. How many of you have felt it? You started something, you didn't understand, and then you felt it halfway. Or you suddenly realize after coming halfway, this doesn't serve my purpose, so I'll keep it. And you felt guilty about it. How many? Oh my God. See, I can see 4 hands going up. Yeah. Right? Let me tell you something. You don't owe anyone. If a reading does not serve you, you are okay to just drop that. Because if it's not adding anything up to what you want to work on, maybe it's time for you to come to that text later on when you need to read that text, or maybe arrive at a time and a situation in your life where you have had a little more pre-knowledge to understand that text. Come back to the text then, but do not feel guilty. Get over this guilt of not finishing texts, and believe me, so many of us do it. We do it all the time. I think academic reading academic readers are also people who are incomplete readers. Like, we leave most of our books incomplete, like at least about 60-70% of the books. There are only few books that you will read cover to cover, and that's okay. Let's get comfortable about it. You might be hearing many things in today's session which conventionally are not told to you, but I'm going to say that because it's time that you actually face those demons. Because these are the demons which actually stop us from engaging or trying to think about a text. The very fact that I haven't read the text fully, cover to cover, stops me from opining about it or presenting my argument about it. Maybe that's something that we need to deal with. Next is, I'll start writing once I'm done reading on a topic. How many people feel like this? Okay, this is what I want to write about, but oh my God, so much to read. I'll start only when I'm done my reading. Oh, I can see Tanu's hand going up. Yeah, I was just thinking about this when I was thinking about this question. It was Tanu's face came to my mind, and yes, absolutely. You are waiting for an opportune moment in future when you will have all the knowledge to write that thing. My dear, that's not going to come. So keep writing while you read. And when I say writing, even if you're not doing a free writing session, but at least jotting down, noting down, making mind maps, concept maps, ideas, things that come to your mind, remember those ideas come in a flash. So capture them. It's like photography. You are on this train and you see a beautiful scenery going past you. If you've lost that moment to take out your mobile phone and capture that image, You've lost it forever, because the train's not going to go back from that place ever again, unless it's on a hill and you keep on going back on the same road over and over again, right? So whenever a thought comes to your mind, and this exactly is active reading. Active reading is not just sitting down with a text and passively absorbing what it says, but writing down all the questions that come to your mind while you're reading the text. Make your texts dirty. Write on them, annotate them, highlight them, use all the colors that you have, right? So there's no extra points to keep your textbooks neat and tidy, okay? So make it dirty, write down all the questions that comes to your mind, highlight this is something that you already do most probably, is like highlighting the ideas or the phrases that you did not understand because you want to look them up later, just to search a dictionary or an encyclopedia or other interconnected readings that you would have to do, right? We do that. That is annotation for meaning. But what you have to do is annotation for function and annotation for critical questions. These are something that you will have to add more to your practice of reading, and then academic text will start unpacking in front of you, right? Talk to the text. Think that it is the author sitting with you and you are having a dialogue with the author. And there are sections where you would say, wait, I understand what you're saying, but I don't agree. And it's absolutely fine to say that. Just because you have a certain text in your syllabus doesn't mean that you have be compliant to that text. You have the authority to disagree. You have the authority to resist what that argument is. You have the authority to say, okay, great, you've given evidences, but those evidences are not credible enough, right? We believe that we are in this hierarchical position when the author is here and the reader is here. That's not the case in academic writing. If you intend to write better as academicians, you will have to push that bar higher up. So what you read critically, you ask questions, you disagree, you critique, and you also agree. Obviously agree. That's part of the story. But then you as a reader, you are kind of reading a text to write about it. And you won't be able to do an efficient job if you don't push yourself higher up in that hierarchy, right? Do you kind of agree to what I'm saying right now? I'll just take a moment to get the vibe of the class. Does it make sense? A thumbs up will be great. Okay, thank you. Thank you so much. Okay, so these are certain things that you will have to keep in mind when you're engaging with difficult texts, okay? And when you know that you're reading this text because you want to write something later on about it, okay? So the first thing, these are 7 things that you could do. There could be more as well. This is what I thought I could do with the text. One is previewing. Okay, this is often also known as skimming the text. Okay, this is a term most probably you've already heard in your classes, in your English classes. Previewing the text. So when you take up a text to read, look at the author. Look at what the qualifications or the other things that the author has done. Look at the heading, subtitle, and the subheadings. Don't just take the text and start reading it. Just flip through it. Get the feel of it. See how big it is. See if you need to chunk it down into smaller bits or not. If it's a 30-page long, most probably you just have 15 minutes to read right now. You won't be able to read 30 pages. So don't just get into the job without chunking it first. The first few minutes should be taken down by planning how you want to read, right? So that's point number 6, creating a reading plan. If it's very big and you know you can't finish it in just one reading session and you need several, maybe over the week, plan your reading session. You do plan your writing, right? Then why do you think you can read without a plan? You need to have a plan to even engage with a long text, because you need to kind of keep track of what you're thinking all the time while you're engaging with the text. Then when you are previewing, when you're skimming the text, look at the introduction, the abstracts of texts. Very, very important. If it's a book, the book blurb would be very useful. Try to see the topic sentences. Just don't go into the paragraphs right away. try to just look at the first sentences of every paragraph. Maybe what will emerge in front of you is the visualization of the text suddenly. You will suddenly see, okay, so this was the author's plan. So initially he's thought about, he or she has thought about setting out these evidences, and then this is the argument. He's stating the argument at the end of it, or he's stating it in the beginning of it, and then using all his paragraphs to substantiate. So suddenly the plan will kind of emerge. That 3D model of that paper will emerge in front of you if you are doing a good previewing task. If there are pictures, graphs, and visual aids, look at those first. In academic texts, we often pay very little attention to the images that come along with it. But please remember, if the publishers have paid extra money to get those images on the pages, it means something to the text. So don't just skip them. Invest some time to understand, why is this image in the text? What would happen if this image is not there in the text, right? Next is end of chapter questions, study questions. This is comprehension skills, we all know, right? For your competitive exams, what is the trick? Read the question first, go back to the text later. Similar for academic readings. If your teacher has already given you a prompt to answer on that text, then most probably your best way is to read that prompt really, really close, and then figure out what are the action verbs in that. What does the prompt need you? Go back to the text, keeping that lens in your mind. You will do a better job rather than just randomly reading the text, trying to get everything that the text has. Maybe that was not useful, getting everything that the text has. It will leave you more confused and would not give you a proper, better answer. Sometimes we are also short of time. We don't have time to get everything that the text has. We just want to write down the things that are useful for us to answer a specific question, right? So when it is prompt-driven reading, read the prompt, understand it, talk to your teacher, clarify, have I understood the prompt well? Then go back to the reading. You would do a much faster job. Next comes is your summaries and conclusions. If there are, quickly read the summary. Rather than reading, I'm not saying don't read the entire text, but sometimes when texts are very difficult, reading the conclusion and then coming back to the text again helps a lot. Because you know that this is where I want to go, right? So how many of you would love to be on a trip without a map? Anyone? Without a map, no GPS. Would you love to go on a trip like that? Not many, I know, right? No matter if your destination is not fixed, but at least you would like that GPS to be with you, or else it will leave you what? Scared. That's exactly what you will feel about academic reading if you don't know the map. So get to know the map. These previewing skills will open up the map in front of you. Then there are some predicting strategies that you could use. Even before you engage with the text, ask yourself, what do I want to learn from this? What do I already know? Okay, I already know this, then why should I read it? What am I expecting this text to tell me? So ask these questions. I'll give you a KQL chart, which will give you what could be the prediction questions. So I'll deal with that a little later. Next is coding. What is coding? Listing important words, ideas, themes, theoretical perspectives, which are new for you. Okay, so do not skip through them. Because if you don't get into these bare bones, then most probably your understanding of the essence of the text would be insufficient. So code the words and the text and the phrases, and definitely for disciplinary reading, which make a lot of difference to the text. Because if you don't understand the theoretical framework, most probably you won't end up understanding what the text is talking about, right? Next is visualizing. Once you've done all of that and you have some idea, okay, this is what is happening in the text, I don't know what works for everyone. For some people, it is arrows and marks. For some people, it is images. For some people, it's doodling. Do whatever you want. Create a kind of a predicting map, a prediction map for your essay. Even before you start, close reading it line by line. Then is monitoring comprehension. So why is it needed? How many of you read in the morning in the same way? Your concentration is absolutely like that. And even when you read it in the afternoon, same concentration, no problem. Even when you read it post dinner, same concentration, no problem. Anyone like that here? Impossible. So find out your opportune moment. You will do that over a period of time. Track what time works best for you, which is the time in your day, and how is the environment around you which works best for you. And once you have tapped that, once you have an answer to that, keep on putting your reading hours in that time. Okay, so do not shift it here and there. Yes, obviously, you can always take a book along with you when you're traveling. That's something else. That's not critical reading. That's not reading to write. But there are some times when we sit down to read something because we have to generate texts out of that. I'm talking about that kind of reading. So keep that in mind. Monitor your comprehension. What works best for you? Know yourself. This awareness is very, very important. Next comes a reading plan. I've already talked about it. Look at the text, see how big it is, what kind of pre-reading of theoretical frameworks you need to understand the text. Get onto the text with a plan. Don't land up. Anything worked in life without planning for it? Not really. Right? Luck by chance, kabhi kabhi, but not always. If you want something to work repeatedly for you, you most probably have a plan for it. If not consciously, but unconsciously, you're planning it, right? Similarly, for reading, you would need a plan, break it into small, digestible parts. If you think that you most probably don't have the attention span to read more than 500 words at a stretch, great. Break your texts into chunks of more or less 500 words and engage with it. Take a 10 minutes break, take a coffee break, take a Instagram break after 5 minutes. And then come back to your text. Okay, chunk it down. Last is the KQL chart. This is what the chart is. I'll just make it a little bigger so that all of you can see it. There you go. So, yes. Coding, yeah. Coding is, again, not in the engineering terms. Coding is marking those words, phrases, ideas which are new for you, and you just mark them saying that, yes, this is what I need to engage with more, right? So even before you start reading a text, there are certain words which kind of look back at you, saying, I'm the new thing idea here, code them, color code them, okay? So that when you are actually reading the text, the circumstantial meaning of those words evolve automatically. For some meanings, you often need to look at the dictionary. And I think most of us as readers have experienced this, that some of the meanings in the sentences, maybe the word is not known to you, but you don't need to go and look up a dictionary, because the words and the phrases that come prior to it and come after it have revealed the meaning. Has this happened to you? This is called as consequential opening up of meaning, right? That's the organic unfolding of meaning. So these are words which are new, but somehow they will give you their definition or their explanation in the course of the text. So either that, so code all the new words, unknown ideas and phrases that you stumble upon right in your first skimming activity. You haven't even started reading it. You're just skimming it. And only there you see, oh my God, this is a new word. I haven't heard about feminist disability theory. New thing. I'll have to look up a little bit. Or maybe this is exactly what this text is all about. Either that. So that is coding. Does that answer your question? Great. Okay, so this is the KQL chart. KQL, acronym for what I already know, what I want to learn, what I did learn, and the plus is what I want to learn more. So when you are starting your text with these questions, I have already shared the list, this list with this PPT with Tanu. So maybe you can share it with your students as well. So this is a very helpful thing to actually start your reading with these frameworks in mind. So you actually engage with the text, keeping certain questions in mind, keeping certain critical frameworks already in place, rather than passively receiving what the text has to unfold for you, right? One of the things that this also does is it just doesn't make you a compliant reader. And that's some of the problems. I think the teachers here would also kind of agree with me that sometimes the assignments that you give, you're expecting analysis, you're expecting evaluation, you're expecting comparison. But what comes to the table is summaries, right? And I know how frustrating it is for a teacher when you want your students to look at the analysis, to look at the evaluation, you want them to analyze something, but what you have in their answers are only summaries. I think this chart will be very, very useful for students to even approach texts right away, not in the framework that I will just list down the things what the text has to say, but I'm going to talk to the text. I'm going to ask the text what it has to say. These are the questions. I'll not go through them in details, but I'll share with it. If you have questions, we'll come back to this sheet later on as well. Now, if you are actually taking up a research and it's not, the level of difficulty has gone up, then you might have to add this extra, which is in blue, this extra column to your reading is what you can read additionally to kind of understand the information that has been given to you, right? So it's kind of extra reading that you do prior to coming to that text. Definitely, you can very well understand and think about text where you approached it for the first time, didn't understand anything, went back to the library, read some preliminary material, came back to the text again, and now it makes sense. It's for those kinds of texts, okay? So this is the basic framework that when you are working with a text, break texts into portions always, skim the text and get an overview. Never ever take up a text as in its entirety and try to read from sentence number 1. You will be frustrated after a third or fourth paragraph because academic texts are sometimes very, very, what to say, they're not transparent. They don't let the reader get into the meaning of the text very easily. So this is something that would be very, very useful, getting the mind map, because that just keeps the GPS in your hand, right? The radar is in your hands. Flag what you do not understand and reread later. Be comfortable with the incomprehension. Okay, it's not a fiction story. It's not Romeo and Juliet story, right? So you might not understand everything. Most probably you won't. So be at ease with that uncomfortableness and go back to libraries, talk to your teachers, ask what resources can be read more to understand those concepts, the coded words and ideas, right? So initially you code them, you read the entire passage, entire essay once or twice, and maybe even by the end of your third reading, those meanings haven't revealed themselves. That's your time to go to the library, do some Google Scholar, talk to your teachers, and find out what more resources can I read to actually unpack that term. That is critical reading. That is active reading. You're talking to the text. When it does not open up, you push the wall. You make it talk back to you. Okay? Find resources that are helpful. Yes, I said that. So take notes while you're reading. Do not wait for writing about it later. Believe me, take my word for it. You will have forgotten those questions and those ideas which came to you like a flash while you were reading it. So keep that jotting pen and your paper ready all the time when you are dealing with academic texts, because ideas will come to you. It's impossible you are engaging with the text and ideas don't come to you, but capture that moment. Talk to others. How many of you do it? When you've read a text, do you have reading buddies in your class? Get it. Approach a text, read a text together. Read a text as when your teacher has assigned that text in class, make small reading groups, reading clubs, 2-3 people in a group. Read it together. Even when, because our different schemas are different, right? We are different people. Our pre-schema, our prior knowledge is very different. I might understand paragraph 1 better. You might understand paragraph 2 better. So after I've chatted, after I've spoken and discussed about the text together at a level where everyone's almost in the same frame, you are basically exchanging information and knowledge without even consciously doing it. So talk to your friends when you read a difficult text. Try to read difficult texts together. Break up, plan your texts together, then read individually, then come back and share that knowledge, what you have. Most probably you will be in a better position than what you were through just a solitary reading of it. Okay? Finally, please don't panic. You have so much of help around you, libraries, teachers, Google Scholars, and even sometimes your texts footnoting. The citations are actually guidelines to unlock texts. So look out for that. Sometimes we overlook the citations part, because if you don't understand what the text is telling, most probably the cues are there in the list of citations, list of bibliography, right? So please don't panic. You are not supposed to understand everything of difficult texts. If someone says, I've understood Foucault or Gayatri Chakraborty Spivak in one reading, I would say that person is a liar. Absolutely. Impossible. Some texts are very, very difficult to even approach them, understand them, unlock them, and only after that understanding them in such a way that you can write about them, critique them, analyze them. These are levels up in the Bloom's taxonomy, and that would take time. So be comfortable with the process. Don't hurry. Don't rush. Okay? So that's what my advice would be for people who are saying it's hectic, it's panicking and all of that. So I've already started talking about it, that when you want to read a text leisurely, reading an Instagram post, I can do it anytime, anywhere I want, right? But the moment I had to read this text that we are going to work just in a while, you will realize that text needed me to take a pen and paper and start marking it. Because if I'm not doing it, I won't remember everything that I'm reading about it. Forget everything. I most probably I'll remember nothing about it by the time I reach the conclusion, right? So critical reading, active reading, if you want to write critically about a text, most probably it needs you to engage with the text at a level higher than just active reading. And what is that level higher? It means questioning and challenging our beliefs and values. Sometimes texts might question and challenge our beliefs and values. You might agree, you might disagree, you might feel confused, you might feel angry, you might feel non-compliant. And all of that needs to be recorded. That is where you will get the meat, the beginning framework of your own critical writing on a certain piece of material that you're engaging with. Okay. Next is, please understand, every author has an agenda. I'll repeat that. Every author has an agenda. So when you are reading a text, try to understand what is the author's biases, what are the author's prejudices, because no one is writing with giving. Do we want academic writing to be ethically correct? We want it to be giving us all sides of the stories. If there's an argument, there has to be a counter argument. But the skill is about telling and convincing the readers on my side. So if you're reading a material, an academic text, and you, at the end of it, you're feeling, wow, what a wonderful text. I believe in everything that the author has said. Well, I would say that the author has done a very good persuasive job. But it's not possible that it is without bias. It is without certain prejudices, right? There is almost nil chance that writing is objective. Definitely not in the social sciences, right? Even sciences have their own troubles with subjectivity and objectivity, but definitely when you're reading texts of social sciences, humanities, and all the things in between, be ready to understand that the author is writing from a certain perspective. Now, if that author has a funding back there, then though you can actually think about amplified cases of bias and prejudices. Then you have to be even more careful about what you take as credible information. So ask the text these questions, ask the author these questions. Okay, that's what I said. Critical reading to write about a text, an academic text, is almost like calling the author and having a coffee with the reading. It's almost talking to the text at a dialogue level. Things that you do with your friends. When your friend says, do you agree to everything? You don't, I guess, right? You say, no, that's not the best place to have puchka. We can go to the other counter. That's the best place. No, I have had it. You must try that. So you don't agree everything your friends say, right? You're always at this going back and forth. That's the experience of reading a text and engaging with it. Finally, critical reading is to move beyond the summary. And this is the pain point of many teachers. I do understand that, right? You want your students to move beyond the summary and trying to just give the gist of the essay. But the thing is, it's because they have been just annotating for meaning and not annotating for function or annotating for critical engagement. That's the level that we need to push, all of us, so that we produce writing that is not just summary, but has analysis, has a lot of evaluation, has criticism and comparison, right? So what are the critical questions that you can ask about the author? I'll just open the floor for more questions once more. So this is just this kind of thinking that, okay, I have a very difficult text and I want to start by listing a few questions I want to ask the author. What would it be? Think of any text you've read, any text in your syllabus, and think, if I had to start or ask the author, what would I ask? Okay, I'll give you a few ideas. Well, you could ask the author, what's your main theme or point or purpose, right? I'm having a chat with the author, right? I'm having coffee with the author. So I'll ask him, what's your main point? If I've read your entire essay thrice and still your main point is not coming across, there's a problem in either your writing or my reading, right? So ask this. And if you have an answer to that by the end of your reading, you can ask the author, any particular assumptions you're making? If you're making assumptions, on what authority are you making those assumptions, right? So that is where you're looking up the author's credibility is very important. If an author is giving you certain opinions, what is the authority to make that opinion? Does the author has that authority to make it? So engage with that. Next is, and mostly texts that you get in the curriculum, you possibly don't have to ask this question, because teachers and people who build curriculum, they actually take care of the canon, right? So they will give you texts which are very, very authoritative. Maybe this is not a question you would be asking that, but if you are reading a text which comes in a blog or a place like Wire or a place like some other blog out there, because right now a lot of writing is also happening beyond the basic academic framework, right? Maybe this is the question you would want to ask the text like these, is that what is your assumption? On what authority are you making these assumptions? What's your start point, right? What's the author's focus, and why is the author focusing only this and omitting the other important points? Maybe you know the other important points, but the essay is not talking about that. Maybe it's time to ask, why did you do it? Are you trying to win me over to one side and not give me the picture on the other side? If that's the question, well, great. I understand your side of the story, but you've not said the other side of the story, and I'm going to hold you accountable for that, right? So other things that you could ask the author is, what your time was like when you wrote the text. Yes, contextual question, absolutely. So this is something which again we would find in many kinds of writing, is that we find that the quote has been taken, but then it has been decontextualized, either historically or spatially or culturally, right? So trying to understand at what time, what was the socio-cultural historical moment in which a particular text was created is going to make a hell lot of difference of how we interpret it, right? So I cannot hold the task, Benjamin's task of the translator accountable at a time when we have Google Translator, right? So he was writing at a time when this was not available. So whatever we kind of grasp from that text has to be from a position where this was not available, or it was a different time. So understanding the context of the text is very, very important. Thank you, Tanu. That was very useful. Okay, the next is, what do you ask of the content? So these are the 4 areas in which you can ask questions to the text. And all of this is happening while you're reading, before you're reading, and also after you're reading, right? This is from where your writing starts. This is from where you move beyond just the summary of a text. So what are the questions you could ask to the content? Any? I had a very interesting word already there in the important word there in the first brainstorming activity, argument, right? After you have done your reading, it's high time to ask, what's the main point? What's the thesis? What's the argument, right? Is there any underlying agenda? What is it? If there's not, then great. then it's credible piece of information. I can take it and use it for other writings that I do. Are the statements that are given facts or opinions? If they're facts, great. Are the facts credible? Have they been drawn from credible sources? Information is correct or not? And you can also ask about biases in the way the content has been given, right? So you could ask that, questions like that. And finally, when you end your reading, maybe one answer that you would want to write is, what did I gain from this entire activity? What did I learn? What has been added now to my knowledge bank that did not exist before, prior to this reading? That is what is going to be your takeaway from the reading. Do not end an academic reading experience without writing that takeaway note. If you're doing that, be ready. You'll have to go to the text again as if you've never read it before, right? So these final takeaways are very, very important. Next comes about the structure. Any question that you can ask to the text about the very structure of that text? What are the questions you could ask? How are texts generally structured? What are the things, what are the ways in which you can structure a text? Yeah. Historically, chronologically. You can also structure a text according to the order of importance, thematic importance, or themes maybe. You can also order a text as cause and effect, as explaining something as a problem and then giving a solution. You can also structure a text depending on what's the different voices of the different debates of the discourse, right? So that could be a kind of a survey of that. It could have an effect, cause and effect relationship. So all these are the structures in which texts are laid out. They are planned. So what you can ask the text about the structure is, why did the text use the structure? If it's giving the information, the argument in a chronological pattern, how does it serve it? And the reason why I'm asking you to ask these questions to the texts you read is these are the answers which will help you decide how you will structure your writing. Good writing comes from, again, sorry for using the word good, I would say effective writing comes from effective reading. So unless you read your texts differently, you won't end up writing differently. So if you want to improve your writing, start engaging with the text that you read differently. And that's why I thought about the moment I have to talk about argumentative writing, it just can't start with writing. It has to kind of have this one preliminary class where we talk about reading, because that's where it starts. It doesn't start with writing. It starts with reading and how you can change it, customize it according to your requirements. Okay. Finally, what are the questions you could ask about the style? What are the different styles that we use in academic writing? It could be very, very formal. It could have informal. It could have anecdotes. It could be analytical. It could be narrative. Could be persuasive, could be argumentative, could be didactic as well. Some texts are very, very didactic, right? So once you have identified what is the overarching kind of, overarching style of that writing, the tone of the writing, then ask, why did the writer use this? Why did the author choose this? How does it help? Had that author not used a kind of analytical style of writing, what would have been lost from the text? Was there any other way to kind of structure it and the styling of it? Is it a possibility that could have been? So once you ask these questions to the text and you start getting answers from the text, my dear, believe me, writing critical passages on the text would become very, very easy. Right? I would want to take a moment here because I've said quite a few things, quite many questions. So if you have questions about anything that I've already said or more questions that you want to ask the text for your critical writing or engaging with the text, you can ask that. Till here, all clear? Questions, doubts? Okay, Shweta Sneha says all clear. Great, great. So now that you have realized that active reading and engaging with the text is very different from that laid back experience of taking the book in your hand and doing a leisurely reading, would you agree with that or not? Or is it like that same thing, but I can do it in a different way? There could be other ways also. Please enlighten me. I am talking from my own lens, my own perspective. It could be hoodwinked. Quite a possibility. And you are all open to tell me, ma'am, this is also another way in which we could do it. So what if I write informally, more like I am having a conversation while answering? Just a second.
Okay, ma'am.
Would it be a problem? When you say informally or formally, there's something very interesting in academic writing which is called as register, right? So all kinds of writing have specific kind of register. When you WhatsApp your friend, my dear, you use a certain kind of language. When you say the same information in an email to a teacher, do you use the same register? That's a question to this person who's asked it. Just a second. The name is Devarna. Yes. No. So you changed your register according to the person and the medium, right? So similarly, when you write, when you say, that's why I said informally is a very abstract word. It's very difficult to understand. So you have to understand, if you're writing a critical piece, where are you, like, what is your intended audience? Who's the intended audience? Is it readers of a blog post? Is it your Instagram followers? Is it your teacher who's reading your assignment? Or is it a publication that you're writing for? Now, the same thing, the same argument could be written in 4 different registers for 4 different kinds of audiences, right? So, and having conversations with the text is absolutely okay. That is what critical reading is all about. But what will be the register will be guided by your intended audience, intended readers. Now you decide who that reader will be and you can write accordingly. If you think there are certain things you should not write in an assignment because the language does not fit the register, well, you don't. But the argument still remains, right? Just because you're arguing with a friend, do you let go of your logic? You don't, right? You are still logical when you are arguing about why a film is a great film and you should go and watch it. You are still arguing logically when you are arguing about that film in your film critic post on Instagram, right? You are still arguing logically when you write a film criticism on that movie. So the logic still remains. Your register will change according to your audience. Does that answer your question, Debarna?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, great. So these are a few kind of summing up of everything that I said, just to kind of put that all of that into one place. When you're reading, distinguish between fact and opinion. Very, very important. Okay. Sometimes opinion might be passed on as fact. Be careful. Don't be gullible readers, right? You can't be gullible readers. You have to be, and when you're reading academic texts and when you want to do critical thinking, you have to be very, very suspicious of what you read. Okay? Okay, feedback form. Okay. We're not done with the session, I think, right, Tanu? Okay. Okay. I have about 30 more minutes, right? Okay. Okay. So the next is, as I said, you remember the word coding I gave you? This is another word for it, annotating for meaning. So when you take on a text and you have certain words, ideas, phrases coming at you and you are like, what is this? I don't understand. Annotate the meaning. If you need a dictionary, an encyclopedia, go ahead and use it. Who on earth told you that you can't use a dictionary to decode meanings? That's what dictionaries are for. Go and use it. But if you think, I don't possibly need to use a dictionary, the context of the sentence will reveal itself. Great, go ahead and do it. It will make you a fast reader. You don't need to stop every time for a dictionary, right? So be your own judge to decide which is the code, which is the word for which you really need to go and look up a dictionary, and which one is like, okay, I can manage. I can still understand the contextual meaning and move ahead with it. Great. Don't make your reading slow paced just because of your habit of looking at the dictionary every other time. Okay. Next is discovering the author's point of view and bias. Never ever engage with academic texts without identifying the author's point of view and bias. Most great writers have very, very serious agenda. If anyone tells you he is a neutral writer or she is a neutral writer, not true. Let me tell you that. Even in the garb of that neutrality, some kind of subjective viewpoint is trying to be pushed at you. So it's better to identify that. And if you really think it's neutral, argue why it is neutral, why that neutrality was needed in that kind of situation, in that kind of context, right? Because if it is a neutral, that's also a position, my dear. Neutrality is not without a political point of view. Neutrality is not without criticality. Neutrality is also a position. Recognizing crooked and fallacious thinking, okay? When you are talking about logic, there will be a lot of play with your ethos and your pathos, right? I think these are things that you've already dealt in your classrooms a lot. There are 3 kinds of persuasive techniques, and in the next class, we're going to deal deeper into this. So you're using logos, you're using ethos, and you're using pathos. So trying to play with the emotions of the readers, sometimes crooked arguments and fallacious thinking is kind of pushed across the table. Be careful to understand that. Recognize propaganda devices, right? Sometimes you're reading, and this is what will help you move beyond summary, because summaries are most often written from a point of awe, from a point of marveling at the text. Oh my God, great text. Chalo likhte hain isme kya kya likha hai, right? So you just make a gist of what you've understood from the text, what the text tells you, right? Don't just hear what the text is telling you. Also listen to the silences of the text. There are lots of silences in every academic text that you read. Try to be perceptive to that. Try to identify the propaganda devices in the texts that you read. Recognizing statistical slips and uncredible sources of information. This would be very easy for you if you are kind of a regular academic reader. Most often you would see something and you was like, no, the information has not been cited. So most probably this is a dubious kind of information. Shouldn't believe it. Or I should look it up. I should check it, cross-check it. Evaluating an author's argument. This is again a technique that will help you move beyond the summary and engage with the text at the level of evaluation, evaluating it, critiquing it. Critiquing is a word you often find in your classrooms, right? I'm sure you've heard about it. So, or you've written critiques yourself, or your teachers have asked you to critique. This is exactly what you do when you critique a certain material. Outlining what is important and summarizing a text. When I say you have to move beyond the summary, doesn't mean you actually don't write a summary. The first task could be a good starting point is always writing a summary, because to understand what I don't agree with, you at least have to grasp what the text is telling you about. So start with a summary, but don't stop there. Move beyond it by asking the critical questions that I just discussed with you. Finally, when you read, annotate for function to unpack the author's application of persuasive techniques. As I said, great writing comes from the ability to read better. Every time you read, just don't read because it's part of your syllabus. Read it and have a conversation with your teacher. What kind of reading was it? Were you persuaded to read more about the topic after you read this? Did it make you curious? Did that make you bored? Right? What you felt about the text. This is something that we often don't log, is how a text leaves us feeling about it. How does the text leave us feeling about the ideas that the text has spoken about, right? So just, these are again myths that academia loves to churn out, is that academic writing has to be objective, academic writing should be devoid of joy, academic writing, the moment you are doing a lot of academic writing, you are not allowed to feel something and write kind of mechanically and a whole lot of amount. So these are myths. Don't succumb to them. If you're succumbing to them, most probably you will end up creating more and more propaganda and not critical material. Okay, so, well, this is a time now I will stop. Lectures over. This is a time when I will go into the text. This is part of your syllabus. Tanu, I have shared the folder with you. You can share it with all the students here. I'll also post the link here. Just a second. It's now. Basically, now they have to start working. So now I'll just share it first and then I'll tell you. Wait a moment. If I'm able to do it, I'll do it myself. Just a second. Copy link, but where do I post it? Yeah, there. You should have it. In case any one of you're not able to access it, please let me know. Is it? Just a second. Anyone on the internet with this link can view. Oh, editor. Acha, acha. Done. And now? Yeah. Okay. So what I've done is I've taken 3 excerpts from this essay that is part of your syllabus. Some of you might have already read it. Some of you might be in a position that you've just started it and you've not engaged with that deeply. And for some of you, it might be absolutely new. So keeping that in mind, I have kind of chosen 3 excerpts and we're going to talk about different things about how to annotate for function. So the first years can work on this, the first excerpt. The second years can work on the second excerpt, and the third years can work on the third excerpt. And for all of the excerpts, you have certain questions along with it. Okay, so I'll possibly give you about 10 minutes to think about it. All students should have access to it. And because this is like, had it been a Zoom, then I would have made 3 Zoom breakout rooms and made you kind of discuss about it. But no problem. Just so don't try to write too much on the text, because we are all of us on this document together. We might just kind of disrupt it. So if you're a first year student, you're working on excerpt 1 and your questions are down there. There are 3 questions. Can you see that? Identify the claims of the essay. Notice the roadmap that the author uses to arrive at her argument. Identify and reflect on the function of each action verb. So first, identify the action verb, and then we'll reflect on it. You can also think about it. Second year students will work on this paragraph, and the questions are, I need you to play the they say, I say game. And what is the they say, I say game? The game is that you will highlight the sections in yellow where the author has cited other sources. And you will highlight the sections in pink where the author has written her own analysis. And finally, you will identify the topic sentence. So this is for second year students. And for third year students, this is the excerpt. And I've asked you, what is the tone of the author? So now we are talking about the style and the tone. Identify the discourse markers. What do they do in the writing? So in case you do not know the meaning of discourse markers, which most probably you would not. So just to simplify it, discourse markers are those words, phrases, in a sentence which kind of flag post a certain change in discourse, a certain change in narrative, right? For example, nevertheless, in addition to, furthering the argument, in contrary to something, on one hand, on the other hand. These are discourse markers, okay? As I have already said. So things, sentences or pieces of sentences which actually kind of connect one idea to the next, or when there is a shift of idea, they tell you, okay, I'm going to shift my car from this lane to this lane, right? Those are discourse markers. Identify the discourse markers and what do they do to the writing? What is the presence of these discourse markers? How do they affect the writing? Comment on the use of I by the author. Is then academic writing objective. Okay, when I say comment, maybe you can just think about it, and we're going to have a session where we'll discuss about it. I'll take about 5-10 minutes to discuss about every piece. And I would first ask you to give me answers, and when I've had enough answers, I would kind of tell you what I feel about the text. Not that they are fixed answers, they're all kind of somewhere in the middle between right and very right. But yes, we'll try. And the final is again topic sentences, and the comment on the eye of the author is then academic writing objectives. So these are the 4 questions for third year students who have already read the text. I believe your teacher has confirmed that you've read the text. So you have a little more complex question. So it's 4:40 now. Maybe I'll give you about 10 minutes. According to your years, you can think about it, mark it. If someone's already marked it, don't go ahead and mark it again, but you can take ahead, because these are things where you will have to kind of color code them. Go ahead and color code them, please. Just be careful. It's a collective document, so it needs to be neat for the presentation. That's it. All of you know how to comment on a document, right? So basically what you do is you do this, and then you put out this one, and then you can add a comment. Okay, so rather than highlighting and just leaving it without a comment, maybe that would be a better way to engage with the document. It's more interactive that way. Color code, feel free to color code them. I've already given you the colors, yellow and pink for this, claims in green, roadmap in blue, and action verbs in this. What color should this be? I don't know. If you feel stuck, let me know, because then we won't be wasting time. That's also important. Ask for help the first moment you feel you need help. That's one of the best advice I would give to anyone tackling with difficult texts. Don't take on the pain all by yourself. Great, wonderful. Second years are kind of faster, I see. Third years haven't started yet. Second years are already jotting down. Great. Okay. First years, where's the claim of the essay? Can you see the sentence which gives the roadmap to the argument of the essay? And finally, identify the action verbs. I can change this color to something more brighter, maybe red. Go ahead and use red for action verbs. and also to just make it bigger. Just a second, view. No, no. There you go. This is bigger, more visible. First years, you're not working. Nothing resonates. Come on. Good. Second year's pink was for the section where the author has written her own analysis. Okay, so I hope you are sure about the color coding that you just did. And this blue or any kind of blue is for the topic sentence. Okay, just clarifying. Third years, where are you? I don't see any activity on the sheet. There are just 7 total viewers. However, there are so many people in the chat. Anyone who's not being able to access the activity sheet? You want me to post the link again? You don't need to be right. Come on. Let go of this fear of being right and wrong. You have to move past this. There's nothing wrong in academia. It's about fixing things, and we are all trying to fix one bit at a time. Okay? So even if it's wrong answers, put it down there. We'll have a discussion. This is no examination. There's no grade. So please, don't stop yourself from marking something just because you're not sure. That's all the game of not being sure and still trying to write something about it. Okay? If you wait for that moment when you're sure, that moment will never come because we'll never be sure in our life. Okay, I can see second years struggling. That's good. Love you, second years. You won the race already. First years are too panicked, not to even try. The easiest one of these 3 questions is to identify the action verb. Okay, you know what a verb is, right? Now, action verbs are just, all verbs are action words. We know that. Now, why did I use the word action? I use the word action to just make you realize that these verbs are kind of those fulcrums on which the effect of the entire sentence kind of is standing. What is the function of the sentence will be determined by this verb, the use of the verb in the sentence. So find the verb and see it is the most prominent verb of that sentence or not. Okay, you will arrive at the action verbs. So first years, you can try. Claims and claims of the essay, well, I do understand maybe you haven't arrived at that position where you can look into that. Okay, second years have clearly won the competition. Great, awesome. Third years, I can see some cursors, so they are trying. Good. Yes, nevertheless is a discourse marker. Whoever is on that point, please mark it. You're correct. Nevertheless is a discourse marker. Very good. Very good. What are the others? We just have 2 more minutes. Very good. There you go. See, it takes some time to just open up. I would invite teachers also to kind of pour in if they want. So please don't stop yourself if you are itching to contribute anything to this discussion. Please. Very good. That's nice. That's nice. There you see. There you see. There you see how the persuasion is being built up. Very good. Okay. 1 more minute. First years, not worth giving it a try. Please try. If you can't really approach the question, then by now you should have asked me, ma'am, what are you asking us to do? I see anonymous wombat trying to do something. Very good. Very good. A minute more maybe, and then we can start. Okay, fine. So clearly second years have tried the hardest. They've made it all colorful. Third years are catching up, and first years are still very afraid to kind of try their luck. Okay, so this is, can any one of you please read it for me? I've kind of spoken for a very long time. Any student volunteer? Any student volunteer?
I'll do it, ma'am.
Yeah, thank you.
This essay aims to amplify feminist theory by articulating and fostering feminist disability theory. It names feminist disability studies as an academic field of inquiry, describes work that is already underway, calls for needed study, and sets an agenda for future work in feminist disability studies. Feminist disability theory augments the terms and confronts the limit of the ways we understand human diversity, the materiality of the body, multiculturalism, and the social formations that interpret bodily differences. The essay asserts that integrating disability as a category of analysis and a system of representation deepens, expands, and challenges feminist theory. To elaborate on these premises, the essay discusses four fundamental and interpenetrating domains of feminist theory: representation, the body, identity, and activism, suggesting some critical inquiries that considering disability can generate within these theoretical arenas.
Thank you, Anushka. That was a neat reading, very beautiful and clear. Thank you so much. So now, in this little passage, and this is the abstract of the essay, okay? So if you just look into each sentence of this essay, you will start understanding what is the function of every essay. Now, we're not looking for meaning in every word, but we're trying to see what is the responsibility of every sentence in this paragraph to actually add a kind of a narrative. So what does the first sentence do? This essay aims to amplify. When you just read this much and you don't know anything else of the essay, what will this starting little starter tell you about the sentence? This essay aims to amplify. Just stop at that. What is the essay supposed to do? What is the sentence supposed to do? Tell us about what the essay is all about, right? Right or wrong? Yes or no? Can you please unmute yourself? Yes, no. Come on. Am I audible? I suddenly felt...
Yes, ma'am, you are.
Yeah, okay. So when I say this essay aims to amplify, and I just stop at that, what are you expecting the rest of the sentence to do?
To give the objective of this.
Exactly, to tell us what the essay is about. There you got claim number one. Next is, it names feminist disability studies as an academic field of inquiry, So just this much. What does it tell you? So what does it do? It names disability studies, feminist disability studies. So even if you haven't read the rest of the sentence, it will tell you that the function of this sentence is to tell more about what this essay is going to tell. Right? Now let's go to the other color coding that I've done, the green one. This essay asserts. Stop at that. What is this essay all about? Is this sentence not the key to understanding what the essay is all about? These are the list of the various claims the essay is going to make and finally arrive at a certain kind of argument, right? So in this paragraph, which is the abstract, I see 3 claim sentences, right? Where are the evidences? Well, for that, you'd go and read the essay. You don't get everything in one paragraph. right? So this is an abstract paragraph which is supposed to give you an overview about the essay, and that is what the author has done, right? Next is this one which I've marked in blue, the roadmap that the author uses to arrive at her argument. She's already given, these are the claims I'm making, and she also tells us that, well, this is the roadmap I'm going to use to elaborate these premises, the ones that she just said. What is she going to do? The essay is going to discuss the 4 fundamental and interpenetrating domains of feminist theory, blah, 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 blah. Basically, the roadmap is out there. The function of this sentence is like a roadmap, okay? And the final question is, what were the action verbs? Now that I have color-coded most of them, can you find out the action verbs? Tell me which one should I do? I'm color-coding. And think about it. Do you think these words have come without a kind of a conscious decision to use it? If instead of amplify, I would have said, this essay aims to talk about feminist theory. Does it make any difference to your narrative? Talk about and amplify. Do these two verbs mean differently?
No, ma'am.
They don't? What is the meaning of amplifying?
To emphasize something.
And talk about is talk about. Is there a sense of amplification there? No, right?
No.
So the choice that our author is making is, instead of saying talk about or this essay aims to project, he's saying, there you go. That's exactly why I pointed it out. Once you're reading a critical essays, essays critically, what you can also do for yourself is enlist these action verbs and use it in your writing. Make a list of action verbs that other authors do. Be perceptive of that and use it in your own writing. So you don't be repetitive like looks at, talks about, because that is not the correct academic register. This is an academic register that you are trying to write in, you're trying to imitate, but you possibly can't because you're not using the appropriate action verb. The next is it names. So naming something. What happens when you name something? Don't you lend it an identity? What is the meaning of your name? Why do your parents take that responsibility of naming you? So when an essay says, I'm going to name feminist disability studies, can you understand what a task that essay is taking on itself? It's taking the responsibility of kind of giving the definition of feminist disability studies. And well, so it does that. Next is, it describes work. See? All these verbs which somehow will not be in your focus unless you highlight them. But the moment I start highlighting them, they'll be like these little bulbs in your mind. Oh my God. So what I was thinking just as a framework, just as a group of sentences are actually doing a lot of politics. And the politics is hidden in the choice of the action verbs. The next are calls for. Next is, now that you've started the wheel, can you just keep on suggesting? Sets an agenda. Augments, wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Augments. Next, asserts. Very good. There you go. The tap is open now. To elaborate on the premises. So to do all of this, to amplify, to name, to describe, to set an agenda, to augment, to assert, what does it do? It elaborates certain premises. So basically the entire roadmap of this essay is hidden in these action verbs. Elaborate on the premises, the essay discusses. So when you're discussing something, you just discuss, you don't evaluate. So when you discussing something, evaluating something, comparing something, contrasting something, critiquing it is all different prompt verbs. And you would often find these prompt verbs in the assignments that your teachers give you. They don't mean the same. Brainstorm about these prompt verbs even before you started writing your essay. You would know what you are being asked to do. So engage with that first and then you can start. Finally, suggesting. So when you're not sure about something, what do? You don't tell, you suggest. So it ends with certain suggestions of critical inquiry that considering disability can generate within these theoretical arenas. Now that we've color-coded this abstract, you see that this abstract is mainly has claims, mostly which is the author's own analysis, and that's where we come to the next game that we are playing with our next exercise. Next excerpt is the they say, I say. Anywhere here, do you think that the author is saying anything or any sentence which is majorly a citation? Anything? When you say the they say, I say game with it, they say is what other people have said and I say is what the author is saying. If you play this game with this excerpt, is there anything on this excerpt which you think that, no, this is not what the author is saying. She or he has actually quoted it from somewhere or taking the idea from somewhere and then utilizing it? Other than the theoretical framework, that's definitely there. That's a framework that will stay. Direct quotes? Can you see any direct quotes? Any direct names of other scholars? Yes, Anushka, please say.
No, I don't think so, ma'am.
No. Abstracts are not supposed to do that. Abstracts are not places where you talk about what other people have said. Abstracts are about telling what your writing is all about. That's the function of an abstract. And this abstract does its purpose, does what it's supposed to do, right? Next, let's go to the next one. And thank you. Second years, they've been very, very, laborious in trying to put all of this. So the quiz for this one was that we'll play the they say, I say game. Whenever you are stuck with a difficult paragraph and you really don't understand and you want to ask this author something like this, "Aap kehna kya chahte ho?" Right? There are some moments in our reading as like, हाँ पढ़ रहे हैं 3 घंटे से, लेकिन कहना क्या चाहते हो? When you reach that point in your reading, you just go back and try to highlight those passages with the they say, I say game. You need to sieve through that writing and figure out where the author is talking and where the forefathers of the authors are talking. Okay? So where the help that the author has taken, the citations that the author has taken, the resources that the author has read, that is speaking through. So there's a time where you need to sieve through that. And the moment you get, and summaries are remember this, summaries are not a list of the citations that the author is doing. Summaries are a list of the author's own analysis. If all of you are doing your summary exercise, keep this in mind, that when you write a summary, you have to kind of pinpoint what is the author's analysis. You're not trying to say in this sentence, in the next one actually. So if you're writing a summary, most probably you will just refer that the author quotes Linton to say something. That's it. You won't quote it again because that would be a bad summarizing activity. You would want to say what the author says, and that's what you've done. So one yellow mark is on this, as Linton puts it. Very good. You have identified it. Also, understand, sometimes when things are in quotes, it's easy to identify. But sometimes things are just slyly passed in between. Let's go to the next paragraph. Can you see a citation here? It does not have a quotation mark, but there is a citation. There is a reference to another author. Very good. Very good. Very good. So not the entire bit, but this sentence, this is, I would say, the analysis. This is the author's own analysis. There has been no archive, no template for understating disability as a category, as analysis and knowledge and blah, blah, blah. The archive, as Foucault has shown us, so not taking direct quotes, but clearly saying that the concept of archive, the category of archive, the idea of archive has been drawn from Foucault's work, right? So sometimes the they say, I say game would be very easy to play. Sometimes it would be difficult when the references are intertwined within sentences. But you also need to do that if you want to hear the author's voice. And critical reading would not be possible if you don't kind of sieve through and single out author's voice. And interestingly, if you understand, this is again something that you end up doing in your writing. all your writing becomes a collection of citations. That's not great writing. You yourself won't like it. By the end of it, sometimes you might get comments from your teachers. Great, you've put in all the good evidences. I can see a lot of citations, but then what is your argument? That's because those citations have not been used to come to a point where arguments are churning out of it organically, right? So be perceptive to it when you're reading. You will be produce it in your writing. Okay, going back to the earlier text. So these are the two sections where there were clear citations, and the others are, it deepens our understanding of this. Great. In other words, see, so there is a citation, and the next is, there is an explanation of the citation. What did you learn from this piece? Never ever leave a citation dangling like a naked person. Citations don't mean anything by themselves. The work of a good writer is to explain what is the context of that citation. Do you see the author just putting a quote there and letting the readers make a meaning of it all by themselves? Not doing it, right? You've put a citation and I'll tell you how to interpret it, because there are 1,000 different ways to interpret this particular sentence. But the author says, wait, I'll handhold you into interpreting it in a certain way, the way I want it. That's where analysis comes in. So all citations need to be followed with analysis. Do not leave them dangling alone and single. So this is the trick that you learn from this paragraph. And what is the topic sentence? I'm assuming you've heard this word before. So I didn't explain it because I was assuming you have some idea. So anyone would try. If you can't, no problem, I'll explain. What is a topic sentence? What are topic sentences and paragraphs? What is the function of topic sentences? Should paragraphs have topic sentences? Think in the word topic, sentence. क्या होगा? दोनों word का meaning मिलाओ. इतना मत सोचो. Tanu, would you want to kind of guide them? You know it, I know. So maybe you can tell your students. Sentences telling us the topic. Yeah, almost. Sentences telling us the topic. So you already know these little rules, I guess, that every paragraph needs to talk about a certain theme, a certain topic. You shouldn't be putting in all your ideas in one paragraph. These are things that your professors have already told you. So if you're not putting in all your ideas in one paragraph, it means every paragraph has a different reason to be there. So that sentence which gives a cue about what the paragraph is all about is called the topic sentence. It's almost like the name of the individual. I'm called Polemy, right? I could have been anyone else, but then the very fact that someone would call Polemy and I will look back is the topic sentence. So your topic sentence is almost like the name of the paragraph, right? How would you identify the paragraph? You would identify it by its topic sentence, right? And a very good attempt of trying to say the topic sentences. We need to study disability in a feminist context to direct our highly honed critical skills towards a dual scholarly tasks of unmasking and reimagining disability, not only for people with disabilities, but for everyone. A topic sentence is generally an entire sentence, not just a singled out phrase. Okay. A feminist disability theory, you have marked it, but this is not the topic sentence. You can say this is a coded kind of idea. In case you do not know what feminist disability theory works, while the cursory reading, while the prediction of your reading, maybe you can just tag it because you know, okay, this is a new word. I've read feminist theory, I've read disability theories, but what is feminist disability theory? That's the starting of that question. You code it, keep it there in your notebook. After reading the entire essay, come back to that word and try to say, now do I know what it means? If you don't, read it again. If you don't, read it again, and then look out for help. Don't keep going back to that loop over and over again. That's where teachers are for. You need to engage with things. If you don't get it clear, talk to your teachers. How many of you go and talk to your teachers about your readings? You really go and say, ma'am, I'm struggling with this paragraph for a week and I can't kind of decode it. Can you help me decode it? Right? Do that. They would love to engage with that conversation. Right? So read your texts as if people who are trying to befriend you, and they will tell you what they mean. Okay? Last exercise of the day is where we were trying to annotate for function again this paragraph. And as I said, what is a discourse marker? Discourse markers are those flag post phrases, phrases or words which kind of hold the narrative by the hand and take it from one to the other lane, right? So the moment you say nevertheless, you're actually trying to say, okay, I've said a lot, but nevertheless, but, and, of course. So when you say of course, that means you've said something and you're trying to again come back to that logic. So these are discourse markers and they're very, very important to write persuasively. As I said, this is a precursor to persuasive writing. If you don't identify persuasive writing markers in the reading that you're doing, you won't be able to replicate it. There is no problem in mimicry. Okay, right? Bollywood does a great job in mimicry, right? And we watch all these Bollywood movies, which are mimicries of either mimics or imitations of movies from down south, from Hollywood, from sometimes even Tollywood some these days, right? And we enjoy those movies. Those are box office hits. So if you want your writing to be box office hits, you have to start learning imitation. There is no shame in imitation. When you're learning and you're learning good, that's how we learn, right? Kids learn through imitation. All kids learn through imitation. That's our basic nature. That's how we start. So that's how we start learning to write, is to learn how to read. I want to, what was the questions? Okay, what is the tone of the author? I'll ask someone to read this entire passage so that we just hear it. And then maybe we can take on the questions. Anyone? It should take us next 5 minutes. Yeah. Yes, Vanshika. Thank you. Yeah, I'll scroll it up for you. There you go.
Yeah. I want to give the omissions. I am describing here the most generous interpretation I can. The adjective, how do we pronounce this, ma'am?
Archive.
Pardon me, please.
Archive.
Archive has shown us, determines what we can know. There has been no archive, no template understanding disability as a category of analysis and knowledge as a cultural trope and an historical community. So, just as the now widely recognized centrality of the gender and race analysis to all knowledge was unthinkable 30 years ago, disability is still not an icon on many critical desktops. I think, however, that feminist theory's omission of disability differs from disability studies' ignorance of feminist theory. I find feminist theory and those familiar with it quick to grasp the broad outlines of disability theory. And eager to consider its implications. This, of course, is because feminist theory itself has undertaken internal critics and proved to be porous and flexible. Disability studies is news, but feminist theory is not. Nevertheless, Nevertheless, feminist theory is still resisted for exactly same reasons that scholars might resist disability studies. The assumptions that it is narrow, particular, and has little to do with the mainstream of academic practice and knowledge or with themselves. This reductive notion that identity studies are intellectual, yet was limited to a narrow constituency, demanding special pleading, is the persistent obstacle that both feminist theory and disability studies must surmount.
Great. Thank you, Vanshika. So, here, what we have found is, and interestingly, Vanshika actually made me realize something. See, from my perspective, archive is a word that I don't need to engage. But for Vanshika, she was struggling with it. And that's a justified struggle, right? So Vanshika, when you read this paragraph, what you need to do is you need to code this word, okay? Because this is a word, you need to find its meaning. If you do not know the meaning of this word, the meaning of the second sentence will not emerge for you. So you will get stuck. So this is how you decide what to code. These are words. Now, the moment you say the archive, Foucault has shown us. So, where will you look for to answer what is an archive? Does the text give you a hint, Vanshika? If I want to know about archive, who will I read up? Or who will I Google up? Forget reading up. Who will I Google up? Does the text tell you anything? Vanshika, an answer from you? Anyone else? There you go, Foucault. So the text is actually leading you. So see, the text could very well have said, the archive determines what we can know. Would that have been a wrong sentence? No. But the thing is, two things are happening here. Number one, the text wants to give us a citation. The author wants to give us a citation. This is also a discourse marker because it comes like in a piecemeal. It's also trying to give the authors a roadmap. If you want to know more about archive, go and read Foucault. Right? So text will reveal to you. That's the magic of texts. Let it talk to you. And then you will understand what you want to get from it and replicate and engage with. Okay? So these are the discourse markers. I've marked them in red. And you would possibly now understand that every time a discourse marker comes in, you're kind of changing the track. Either you're gearing it up, your paragraph is going faster, you're adding more speed to it, or you're changing the track. That's what happens with discourse markers. What is the tone of this paragraph? That was one question where I wanted to come. What's the tone? The very first sentence. I want to give. Academic writing is objective, is it? What does the author say? Have you been asked to take the I out of your research many times from your paragraphs, saying that they are not working there? When you get feedback like that, these are the paragraphs you go back to, right? Sometimes the subjective is very, very important because your subject position comes out clearly. The author tries to say, I want to give the omissions I'm describing here the most generous interpretation I can. That means I'm not being nasty. I'm trying to be nice. Okay? But in spite of trying to be nice, these are the flaws that I cannot ignore seeing. What are the flaws? The flaws is that disability studies the flaw is disability studies not being knowledgeable or not grasping the importance of feminist studies. And she's saying that disability studies, yes, it does the same, like kind of same thing, not exactly same, but similar. But disability studies is news. Feminist theory is not. So how can people or academicians or scholars of disability studies feign ignorance of feminist theory? Because if you haven't read up your feminist theory, you would be doing a very shoddy job in being a scholar of disability theory. So what she's trying to be, she's very critical of those people. And that is what her point is. She's trying to conflate feminist theory and disability studies because she sees a remarkable amount of similarity between the two frameworks. And she also says that this is the reason why identity studies, which is again kind of an overarching study which stands on top of feminist studies as well as disability studies, both are identity studies, right? So identity is this reductive notion, the fact that the assumption that it is narrow, particular, and has little to do with the mainstream academic practice and knowledge or with themselves. This reductive notion, the sentence tells us, this reductive notion that identity studies are intellectual ghettos limited to a narrow constituency demanding special pleading is the persistent obstacle for both feminist theory and disability studies must surmount. So the very fact, now go back to the title of the essay. Let's go back to the title of the essay. What did they say? Title of the essays are always key to understanding what they mean. Integrating disability, transforming feminist theory. Now, can you understand the meaning of the entire sentence now? What she says is, I'm going to integrate the idea of disability and transform feminist theory. That's what she wanted to. That was her agenda in the paper. And that's what she tried to do. Okay? So using all the kind of strategies that she's done through the tone, and the tone of this paragraph is kind of being, I can be more critical, I can be more nasty, but let me try to be nice and come out with this criticism. So that's the kind of tone. It's sarcasm. Don't you see this is sarcasm? When you say disability studies is news, but feminism theory is not, isn't this sarcasm? This is a tone of sarcasm. It's like, come on, you haven't heard about disability studies? Great, fine, it's just coming up. But then haven't you heard about feminist theory? Well, great, then go do some reading. That's the sarcasm that she's coming out with. And that is kind of persistent in the entire paragraph. So what are the myths that we had? Academic reading is devoid of emotion? No. Academic reading is objective? No. Academic reading has to be dry? No. It can be joyous. It can have lots of emotions, lots of rasas, right? So for rasas, you need not always look for the dramatic or the performative. Texts are also performative in their own way. And you can find all the rasas in your text if you know how to engage with them. I would end my lecture on that note. I hope I had been able to evoke some rasas in you and the text that you read henceforth, and however you engage with them. I think I got most of them clear. Yay! Awesome. To get that comment in a virtual medium means a lot. Thank you so much. Yeah, but it's absolutely okay to not understand as well. I do understand. I was talking in many terms which might have been abstract. This just to kind of the last slide that I had. You can keep it. Think about it when you are asking questions. Yeah. So yes, please. I would so love to know if I have added anything to what you already kind of spoke to with your students, things that you already do, things you don't agree with, which is also absolutely okay, because that's just my way of reading and the things that I believe in. You might not agree, which is absolutely fine. Okay, that's the feedback form coming up. Yeah. Yeah. But I would definitely love some face-to-face feedback, at least from the faculties.
Okay, hi. Thank you so
Hello.
much, follow me. In fact, it is very practical for us as, even researchers, current researchers, that writing and reading can go hand in hand, irrespective of us not getting everything. I think that was one very practical. Besides that, every other exercise that we did, it's very insightful. Even as, faculty members, that has really helped us to be rooted and be practical, to the point of being able to do things and go ahead. So thanks a lot, and we look forward again for the next one soon.
Thank you so much. Mm. Mm. Absolutely. Oh, no. We are all co-creators of knowledge. Come on, Tanu. No. Yeah. Absolutely, because I was thinking of sending you a text over one from yours, but then also I was thinking if I would just do just one text, maybe that would not give me the grasp. So I'm still trying to think whether I would deal with multiple texts or just one. But this text that I've dealt with today is definitely going to be in one of the, like, it would benefit you if you come having read this text once or twice before the next session. This is for sure. The other ones, I'll think if I can incorporate more, because there are different strategies of persuasion that different texts kind of engage with, right? And that is something that we would like to work with. And also getting deep into the argumentation process and the evidence, argumentation, building claims, premises, and all of that. So, and also coming back to the logos, ethos, pathos, and all of that. So, I'll try to build all of that. Just a 1.5 hour session, too tight time for all of that discussion, but I'll try my best. Thank you, Ranjana. Thank you so much. Okay, so. Mm-hmm, 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 mm-hmm. Yeah, 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 absolutely. And I think it's most of the time the problem with assignments is that it's not that students haven't read; they do read, but then somehow there is a gap between what as teachers we are expecting and what as students they are delivering. And I think seminars like this they come trying to bridge that gap. It just tells students this is what teachers are looking for, so why don't you give it that and get a better grade, right? So right, right, absolutely, absolutely, right. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I'll also, yeah. Tanu, you can also share my email ID with all students in case they have questions. They can ask me. So you can share both my email IDs. One, the one that I use for the writing booth, as well as the one that's the specific one that I use for all kinds of writing related and reading related thing. Because I'm trying to kind of keep a log of all of that. So that's really useful. Lot of comments come in there as well, and it's easy to track. My main Gmail ID is overflowing with mails, and sometimes I miss important student communication. So that way you can share both with your students. In case you come up with questions, please reach out. Okay.
Ma'am, actually, Vanshika was supposed to do the moderations.
Yes, ma'am. So, yeah, thank you for those splendid words, ma'am. I feel so glad that I joined, and I know everyone must be. So, I would like to call upon Kirtika, ma'am, to deliver the vote of thanks.
Okay.
Hello, yes, am I audible?
Yes.
So, everyone has thanked you a lot, follow me for good reason. And so, on behalf of Mitraksha, the Literary Society of the English Department, I'd like to formally thank Dr. Polomi Das for this important, essential, and really good session. Thank you so much, Polomi. Thanks for bringing the craft of reading to the classroom. This is one component which the students definitely, possibly must be lacking because of the online mode of teaching. In fact, like many of the other teachers also pointed out, many of us as scholars also experience proper academic reading only in higher studies at research level. So it's great that students got to experience this kind of professional hands-on interaction early in their academic lives. Also, while a lot of importance is given to academic writing, we tend to miss out on the fact that reading is the foundation.
Absolutely.
Further interaction with the process of writing, and there has to be a complete association with the text. Some kind of brainstorming, some germination of ideas. Only then will it lead to any kind of writing. So, like you said, effective writing takes place only through effective reading. So, it's great that you brought all of these new ideas, tools, and acumen to the table. I'm sure students would feel better prepared to deal with academic reading and soon attempt to write too, as we all meet again in the next session that is going to be held on the 5th of March. So,
Yeah.
thank you once again, Dr. Padani.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Okay, Shushruth is a faculty, I think, right? Thank you, Shushruth. Thank you, Shushruth. Much needed, I think.
Especially for our students of literary criticism and theory, I think we spend a lot of time telling them ki.
Absolutely. Okay, thank you so much for sharing your candid comments about everything. Thank you so much, Shushruth. Tanu.